Congratulations on your movie. Tell us what the film is about.
Yeah, so I guess there's two answers to that question. One is it's about this young man called Oliver who ends up digging up some bodies from the local cemetery. They're then magically brought to life, and Oliver goes on this adventure with this family of the undead, as they try to kind of integrate him into society. And at the same time, Oliver tries to stop anybody finding out he's got a bunch of zombies living in his house. So that's the long answer. The short answer is it's about a young man dealing with grief.
Wow. I like that short answer. Tell us about the casting of the film. You've got two brilliant young guys, actually. Max, we know him from recently his Amazon movie. Can you talk about that?
So very fortunate with the cast. I mean, Max, I hadn't seen everybody talking about Jamie when I cast Max in the film. I just thought he obviously shot that movie. I knew it was coming out, but he's just a super talented guy and takes his craft very seriously, really thinks about things, has a very unique and nuanced approach, I think, to performance. I think he is, just a real talent of an individual, and as a human being, is just a great guy. I have so much time for him, and we were very fortunate to get Max. And obviously, the hero finds Tiffin is, again, I think people in this film, people have seen Hero in the After franchise and used to seeing that side of him, but to see Hero do this very comedic role of Mitch is really interesting, and because he's a really naturally funny guy, and I'm glad people get to see that side of him, and the rest of the cast as well. I mean, every single one of them is amazing. I think they all do a phenomenal job.
The production design in this film is so prominent. It's you're really walking into a dollhouse. It has an 80s feeling. Can you talk about the design?
Yeah, so I mean, the whole thing really starts with when I read the script, because I like all things 80s. So I most things I've done end up getting kind of infused with 80s sort of influences. And I think that when I read it, I was like, oh, this is such a great 80s script. And, I was blown away by how authentic it was. And then I realized that the script, when it was conceived by Piers Ashworth, Brad Wyman, and Emilio Estevez, they conceived it in the 80s. So the script was like, almost 40 years old when I read it. So that's why it kind of has that authentic feel to it. And then the idea with the house, as you said, the doll's house, was that it's almost as though the house in the film it's Oliver's safe space. It's the one kind of constant in the film. And it kind of wanted to have this 50s, 60s vibe infused with 80s pastels. So the whole place looks like it's almost been like dipped in aspic, it's kind of like preserved in time. But yeah, I was really happy with how the house turned out. I thought it looked really, really, really interesting.
It also has this, you've created this atmosphere of small town idyllic Americana.
Yes. It's as I said, I mean, for me, it was all of that was already in the script. I think, it was there, it existed. And my job was simply just to kind of steer that ship. I think the essence of what it was to me jumped off the page, and that's a real testament to the guys and the amazing job they did with the screenplay.
Max is almost in every scene, obviously.
Yeah.
How do you work with him? What sort of an actor is he?
It's funny because Max is a smart guy, so he's kind of, when we first approached the film and we started talking, and we decided that Max was the right guy. Max and I spoke at length for weeks, and we went around the houses about Oliver's journey and how to approach Oliver. And then one day Max called me and he said, we spent all this time going around the houses, and it's, as I mentioned earlier, this is a young man who's grieving. That's what is at the crux of this. And suddenly, when you realize that's what it is, it suddenly made Max's performance and very relatable for Max, and then in turn relatable for an audience, I think, because the fact that Oliver's a unique character, he's a guy who isn't necessarily like everybody else. I think at some point in your life, everybody feels like that at some point. Everybody feels like they don't fit in. Everybody feels like, you know, like, how is this all possibly going to work out? And I think what I like about the way that Max did the performance is, it's kind of like there's a self-awareness about Oliver. Like, I think Oliver is a much smarter character than on the surface he first seems like he is. I think, you know, he has this world that he exists in, and that world is very much his house. Everything outside of the house is scary. It's a scary place for Oliver. And I think Max portrays that incredibly well.
It's interesting that the dead, your zombies, they are their comforters in this film.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because it's kind of, it's with the zombies, with the undead characters, I very much approached them as a director that we just talked about performance and scenes, and in the same way you would if they weren't zombies. And I think that's what's really nice and unique about the film, is that they're falling apart. You know, Susan's face that falls off when she's ironing, and arms come, Ben Miller's arm comes off, and all this stuff. But it's just not really spoken about. It's just, they just continue this journey as a family trying to help Oliver. And that for me was what was really interesting about the film, is that we don't focus in on the fact that they're undead and that they're zombies. The focus is Oliver's story, you know, and I think that was a really probably refreshing, and that probably an interesting, refreshing thing for the actors playing the family, playing the undead.
So, well, what was your strategy, your shooting strategy? How did you design it?
I mean, I'm very fortunate that my cinematographer, Harwood Heller, you know, we've worked together for a few years now, and you know, Harwood's a great friend of mine as well, and kind of have a real trust, a real kind of good shorthand, you know, like he knows what I like, and we decide very early on what we want, and we both like things to be consistent. We like consistency, so it's like we establish a look, that's it, that's what we're doing. We don't divert from it. We stick to the plan, and I think that, you know, I think the way the film looks and the style of it is so much down to Harwood. Like it really is, you know, like he's just a super smart, super intelligent, he's a quiet guy, but he's just, you know, I just think he's amazing. I think he's done such a good job. And I think that you're only as good as a director, you're only as good as the people around you. You know, it's a team sport making a film, isn't it? So you're only as good as your, you know, as your DP, as everybody, the gaffer, every single person on the film, operators, you know, our operator, James Poole, I worked with James for a few years, and he's amazing. And, you know, I can only stay on my track because of my script supervisor, and, you know, I'm only as good as those people, you know. And with the cast, I'm just so pleased the cast of this film, because they were all so nice, so great. And, you know, we really, as it became really close as friends, you know, and I think you can see that on screen. I think you can see that they genuinely get on, you know, and that there's a camaraderie there. But they were all great. I mean, every single one of them. I don't have anything but good words to say about all of them. Every single one of the actors in this film, I think, is fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.